Hey guys, Mr. Mini Painter here and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I painted Homelander from The Boys. And The Boys is an addition to the Zombicide game, the second edition. And you can play either the boys or the soups as survivors in this game. And I love this expansion because it has my favorite characters from The Boys, the fantastic show I've been watching for all seasons now. And the show would be nothing without the unstable Homelander, of course. I love his crazy character and his mentally unstable situation in this show. Anyway, he is a fantastic character to paint because he's very colorful. He's got these star-spangled banners on his back even, and yeah, so this is an amazing chance to portray this character. So I'm going to show you how I painted this character, and I hope this video is of any help to you guys. Let's get to painting. Alrighty, there he is, Homelander. I primed him in a black primer, and he has this beautiful pose, really according to his card. And I added some modeling sand to the base because I found it a bit more interesting than the flat base that they usually come on. And you can see there is a tiny bit of orange shining through, so I fixed that with some Abaddon black, covering that brightness before we started. Now to start off with, I'm using Bugman's Glow for the face. It's the only piece of skin showing, and I'm covering that as a nice base color. Make sure to get a solid base color before starting to highlight. For the highlight stage, I'm using Cadian Flesh Tone, covering about 70-80% of the previous layer and focusing, of course, on the raised areas. So the cheekbone to create some extra sharpness, the forehead, the eyebrows, the nose, the tip of the ears. So that way you get a nice highlight and some shady areas. So for example, the sides of the nose, the eye sockets, those remain nice and dark. The part of the neck below the chin, so you get a natural highlight and shade situation. Now we're going to be taking that one step further by using Kislev Flesh, and I'm decreasing the area that I'm painting, so focusing only on the cheekbones, the forehead, his temples. You can get some nice frown in there if you're able, on his forehead. And what we'll do here is kind of block out the areas that I want to paint and then add a little water to your paint and kind of blend those two layers together. Now once this is done, I'm adding a pupil with Palette Witch Flesh. This, of course, always is the most difficult part of painting a miniature. It's the tiniest detail and eye. And what usually helps is I tend to hold my miniatures upside down when painting the other eye, depending if you're right-handed or left-handed. It helps you get a straight line without that nose being in between and in the way. Now with Abaddon Black, I'm painting in a pupil and give him that menacing look. And it's time for the hair, and the base color for the hair I used is Mornfang Brown. A nice bright light brown color, as we're going to build that up to a golden blonde look. Now for the next step, I'm using Baylor Brown as a highlight, and we're going close to that gold look already. Leave some of that brown shining through, so try and focus on individual strands of hair here, and of course they can be close to each other because you want the majority of the color to be nice and bright and just some shady areas in between. So pick out those strands. He's got this hair all pulled back. Now we're going to give that a highlight as well by adding some Ushabti bone to the Baylor Brown. And you get that beautiful blonde, light blonde actually a bit grayish blonde it turns to be, but it really works with this character. He's got this light tones in his hair. Now with this bright color, focus only on the top of his head and mostly the front, of course. Now for the lips, I always use some Carbo Crimson, as it turns the lip a bit more pinkish and make them stand out from the previously painted skin tones. Then it's time for the suit itself. Night Lord's Blue as a base color for the majority of the suit, the blue parts. Thin down your paint a little bit because there is some tiny details in there that you do not want to clog up with a thick layer of paint. Next we're focusing on the base color for the reds, and for that I'm mixing some Abaddon Black in Corn Red. I'm painting the boots, the gloves, and the line on his chest, where his suit is kind of folds over each other. It has this subtle line here, which I'm also painting in the same color. Next step is the base color of the cape, and the cape is a big American flag, and for that I'm using Mephiston Red for the reds. It's got these red and white panels, of course, and then the blue with the stars on his shoulders. So figure out the front and back of the panels aligned, that they're aligned, and color in that paint. Now there's a lot of folds in there as well, which makes it a bit hard to stick to one panel without going into the grooves or the deeper parts, and I tried to let them be black, but it's kind of difficult to keep them separated. Gray sear I used for the white parts. As you can see here, I try and let that black line, the deeper part, be black. I think it really works with these colors to have some black in there as well. Then for the blue, I'm using Cantor Blue on the part on his shoulders here with the stars. And then we've got those base colors ready. Now I'm washing the whites and the red actually with some Apothecary White to dull it down a little bit. It's kind of a gray fade you're covering it with. Next I'm taking some gray sear once more and paint all those tiny stars on the back of his cape. These are very, very tiny things, and you want them to kind of reach the shape of a star, which is quite difficult with this size. I'm also covering the whites of the cloak of the cape once again. We previously toned it down with some with a shade, and now I'm picking up those brightest parts once more with the original base color. I'm doing the same with the red, taking the original Mephiston Red and bring back some brightness on the raised areas of the cape, so that the sides and the top parts that would be the most visible reflect the most light and leave those deeper parts darker. Now we're going to be highlighting the cape even more with some Evil Sun Scarlet. Decrease the area that you paint and increase that highlight at the most logical points. For this you need to know where your light source is. Is it above? Is it in front of him or in his back? So I'm figuring light is like a sunlight coming from a diagonal line from above. Now the boots and the gloves were painted with a mixture of Abaddon black and corn red, and now I'm highlighting that with pure corn red. Give it some edge highlight here and there on the details you have in there, and the wrinkles and the folds. Follow those natural lines, leave the back darker. And the same goes for the line on the top of his chest. Now the final extreme highlight on the reds for the gloves and boots will be Wazdaka red, focusing on the very edges, the tops, knuckles on the hands, for example, the edges of this armor here, and the line on his collar and chest as well. And that's it for the reds. Returning to the blues. We're covering his chest with some Elatok blue. Not just his chest, all of the blues. And we're covering a lot of the larger areas here. And those fold wrinkles make them really pop out and stand alone from those darker areas. So follow the line of the muscles, follow the light, and you get a beautiful result. First enter some hard lines here and there like I'm doing here. Afterwards thin down your paint and kind of blend those colors together. You can go heavy on his chest because that would be the part that would bounce off the most light. The rest can be a bit less. Next up is Kaeldor Sky, an even brighter variant, and I'm focusing only on the top parts of the previous highlight area. So, because I figured that the light would come from the sun, for example, that way it's a high light and only the top parts of his body would reflect that light. So the top parts of his chest muscles, the top part of his leg muscles, and those folds that are visible, for example his knees, a bit of the side here. But make sure to decide if the light is coming from up front or a bit more from the left or the right, and make your highlights natural looking. And once this is done, we've got our blues fixed as well. Now it's time for the golds. And for the golds I'm using a Liberator Gold. There is this emblem on his boots. We've got the shoulder pieces, of course, his signature shoulder armor. Way too big to be functional, but it looks cool, right? Of course, his belt. And some lines on the top of the boots. There's a double line going here. And there's also a double line going on his gloves. Now here comes the interesting part. There's a line on the bottom part of the glove as well, but there's also a pattern on the gloves, which is a bit tricky to paint actually, but I'm gonna give it a go. What I'm doing here is painting diagonal lines from top to bottom in between those top two lines and the bottom line just below his fist, and kind of creating a pattern here of diagonal lining. Leave the red shining through, of course, because their gloves are mainly red. So try and pick out those lines as fine as you can. You get this beautiful result. Next, I'm washing all the gold with Wayland Flash Shade. That way you get some nice details in the belt, in the shoulder pieces, and the emblem on his boots. And you bring some warmth into the gold. Once this is dry, it's time to highlight that gold with some Canoptic alloy. Focus on those top parts, the parts that would reflect the most light. Now once this is done, it's time to focus on the base. Covering that with gray cere. And you can leave some of that darker area shining through. It doesn't have to be a solid color, as we're going to paint over it with a contrast paint. And as you could have seen in my different videos, I'm a big fan of Garagak Sewer, a contrast paint that really resembles that sand tone, dark sand tone. It looks like he's standing on a piece of land, soil or whatever. You can add some foliage if you want. I'd like to keep these bases quite clean, but I didn't want them to be flat. So for me this works. Of course you can do whatever you want. And that's it for Homelander.